News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from SoonerScoop.com. Now, here's the entire SoonerScoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and
George.
All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast right here on SoonerScoop.com and worldwide on YouTube and whatever podcasting platform you are listening to today. A very special day again because Josh McCuistion, I can say the name right, is back in studio along with Eddie Radosovich and George Stoy. That was the Big Voices guy's first attempt. Do you remember that? When I didn't give him a pronunciation guide and he came back with Eddie Radosovich.
I do remember that, yes.
At least you got the big voice guy.
Yeah. Got the treatment. Got
George
the
coming
special
in
treatment.
hot. Well, there were fewer people back in those days, George.
No, I like mine. It's funny.
By the way, I mentioned this today, and I'm not planning on making a big deal out of it, but Josh, we are a month and a half away from the 20th anniversary of Sooner Scoop.
So what are we? I meant to ask that. We haven't even had that conversation. Like, what are we basing? Like,
2004
like,
is when I came over.
Okay.
And you were working for Crabtree at the time.
Yep.
You were in school at OU. This was 2004 in August. And it used to be OUfans.com.
Yep.
I said, I can't really be working for a website that has fans in it.
Sure.
And look, this is not like today it's a different discussion. Then you got to realize we didn't have any access. It was like, I wanted us to be credentialed, and I fought hard for that. And, many years of Kenny Moss. I mean, that's why I ended up with a radio job in the first place, because I had to do radio in order to get a credential to the game, to cover the game. And it was kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod. Like, yeah, we know you don't, you should be here, but if we let your website in, then every blogger and remember the buffsfans.net, that message board, they sued the school because they wouldn't let him go to practice with the rest of the other media, and it was just a wild time. People trying to just get access, and websites were popping up everywhere. Like Rivals started in '98, I believe, was the very first database. That recruiting class. Cause I remember OU's was Jason White and Michael Thompson, and I think they were the first two commitments maybe in that class.
That sounds right. I know White was one of them.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain about that.
But I remember when back in the old days when it was, Shannon Terry and Jim Heckman, Bobby Burton and Jeremy Crabtree, the national recruiting advisor. Now we're getting old. But the very first OU website that came up in the database, I just remember it had Jason White, and I think it had Michael Thompson in there. Those are the first two committed in the database.
Yeah. That could be right.
So I was working for Sooners Illustrated in those years, and we were building kind of our own rival. I was building their own rivals for them. The company ended up getting bought up, and so first call was to Jeremy Crabtree, and I said, okay, I'm ready to come work for Rivals. And he said, good, get over here. And then we decided to change the name. And remember, the first Sooner Scoop looked like a newspaper script, which I think you hated, and you're like, we got to change that. But no, it might have been for a year or two. It was like a newspaper script, like an old style, calligraphy kind of. And then somebody in the graphics department made us what we have now, which is a cooler deal then. I thought about changing it. We've tried changing it, but it's just who we are. I mean,
I was going to say, I wondered about that the other day. I think we were talking about some screen printing stuff, and I was like, is it time for us to consider something different?
I don't know. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think SoonerScoop.com needs to change, and you're going to have to pay for the new door signs and all that, but
sure,
car signs, parking spot signs, but now 20 years later, coming up on us in August, I want to say the 8th, I think is maybe, because my LinkedIn I think has the actual date, but I was doing radio before. I was working at KREF I think 2 years before I came over to Rivals. So, but I don't know, when did you finish school? Like, what year would that have been? 07?
No, because I was almost done at that point when you came over. And
there was this whole big, time when, they treated us like the hired help.
Yes.
Because, we didn't own the site, and it wasn't until Yahoo bought Rivals that they're like, in the management that came in there, they're like, well, you guys are up. I won't tell you the ins and outs of some things that Josh and I we almost hated each other. We almost split up at one point. But they finally came to the table and they're like, okay, we're going to give you guys the site. And I would say that 2010 maybe.
Yeah.
And that was a long 6 months of looking at old contracts. That's why I remember that when we made this move.
Was that when they gave it to us? Because that was Eric's stuff. Like Eric is when Winter is when they gave it.
Well, yeah, but we negotiated with man. I hate that I forgot his name, but it's been so long. Greg Gibson.
Okay. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Greg Gibson was the one that negotiated with us. Because I remember we were like driving through Alabama or something when we were negotiating that stuff. I don't know what we would have been doing in Alabama.
Yeah.
Or were we in Alabama in 2010, Eddie?
I don't think I've ever been to the state of Alabama. So no.
Wow. It's gonna change this year, buddy.
Yeah, it will. It will. Twice. Well, I guess once for Auburn. But yeah, I don't think I've ever been through Alabama.
Interesting.
Drove down to Louisiana. Drove down to Arizona.
You know what it was? It would have been 2000. It would have been the basketball tournament.
Yeah, I didn't go down there.
Oh, you
I
didn't go
down there for that. No.
Birmingham. Yeah.
No, I didn't go down there.
We were driving through Alabama, but it was for Birmingham. But that would have been 2008. So I don't know. You know me and my memory. I would have
still been in school too. Yeah, I don't think that.
And what was your
definitely
first
did go to
year
Birmingham.
working here?
2010.
2010.
Yeah.
And you were in school for 2 years
when I was working for you guys.
Yeah, as you were working here. Sorry, that's me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was more closer to because it would have been 2008, like during the Blake Griffin run. Because I was still doing stuff I was still in school technically,
and you were moderating the main board, which was
I was doing stuff for Krabby.
You should have been paid
with Rivals.
like hazard pay for that.
I think I was.
Okay.
I think I was. I definitely got hazard pay, but I was also doing like recruiting updates and stuff. Krabby was sending me 15 names. I still have notebooks of that because that first batch of kids was like Cam Newton and that whole group that ended up going on and doing bigger and better things.
When he was at Blinn Junior College, you were calling him.
Yeah, he never.
That was the whole laptop.
He never answered.
Era incident.
Yeah, after Florida and all that kind of stuff that went down in Gainesville for sure.
So I mean, coming up on 20 years, and I said this to the guys, like I usually hate it when people do that. It's just like a bunch of people that celebrate. We've been doing this for 20 years and we kind of suck at it now, but we still want to tell you how long we've been doing this. I think we're better than we've ever been. I think we're only getting better. We're growing. George now, big part of it. And I don't want to leave out Bob. I mean, he's been a big part of our growth as well, just being a guy that kind of is our utility man and, keeps us – now his job is to kind of keep us all on track and, producing content and all that stuff. I mean, bringing on George has taken everything to another level. And, with the writing and the breaking news and the features and more of that to come, even though, it's hard to get him in the studio with all the vacations he takes, right, Eddie?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of incredible.
Well, hey, what are you doing next week, George?
Well, I'm in a wedding this weekend.
Shocker.
Finally, the last one. I've had 6 this year. This will be my 6th wedding to attend.
We should do a power ranking on most likely to get divorced to most likely not to get divorced over the 6 weddings that you've been to.
I could do that.
Can you just name locations? I mean, we don't want to put people.
Yeah, we won't
out
put
there.
names out, but I could definitely do it.
It'd be fun. That could be a new.
Have there been
YouTube.
any really good wedding toasts that you've been a part to?
No. There's been some good ones, but a lot of the weddings I've been to have not been. I've been the +1. This weekend is one I'm actually in, and then after that, I'm flying to Colorado for a few days to go to Vail. So that'll be It'll be awesome.
Did you say you're going to Red Rocks next week?
Yes, Wednesday on my birthday.
Nice.
Which, by the way, shout out.
See Josh? He's going to see freaking Third Eye Blind at
Third
Red
Eye
Rocks.
Blind.
Oh, that
at Red Rocks.
Awesome. That's.
I was so jealous when he told me that yesterday.
Look, when I go on vacation, I do it big.
Were you even alive when Jumper was out? Like, is that even?
When did that? It came out in like 2000,
1990, late 90s.
Yeah, 96, 97.
Well, I was born in 96. So.
I can't.
But
I just can't.
Semi-charmed life.
I like that the Third Eye Blind is relevant with people that were barely born when the first album
to be
out.
fair, and I'm not going to say I'm some big Third Eye Blind fan. I could only name you probably a handful of songs, but we just looked up and saw that there. I just wanted to go to Red Rocks, and I was trying to see who was in town, and I saw it was Third Eye Blind. I was like, well, I know some Third Eye Blind, and Yellow Card's opening for him, Ocean Avenue. So
That was a banger back in the day.
it'll be fun.
I think I saw Yellow Card like right when they were starting at Central Oklahoma's gym. Like literally back in the day.
I can remember watching Creed at little bars around Oklahoma. Not bars, but I was too young. But like they were just getting started. They're like, oh yeah, they're this Christian rock band. They're really cool. And then they became Creed. So it was a little different animal.
Josh and I have a very similar band stories. You just backed the wrong horse.
What do you mean?
Hinder.
I mean, that's like a friend. Like I don't have any. Like that's someone I grew up with. I played Little League baseball with that guy. So, and another one is a relative of a friend.
Okay, was he like the guitar player, the drummer, or the
lead singer?
He was the lead singer.
Lead singer was a guy I've known for 20 years.
Are they still playing?
30? No, 20.
Are they still like doing some kind of
circuit
out there?
He's not part of it anymore. He there was a difference in artistic ideas. I think would be the nice way to say.
They said we don't have any hits. You're out.
Yeah. It just didn't go well. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same deal. Like I can remember having the conversation. Austin is his name, and I can remember having the conversation with him. Yeah. Like, I support you, man. You're my friend. Like I'm behind you. This is not my kind of music. Like I mean, like, I was always very upfront about that. I was like, I'll buy every record you ever make, but it's not my thing.
I honestly don't know what. After all these years, I don't know what your kind of music is. Like we both share a love for. What was I thinking of? I don't even know now.
Like indie rock kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, but like you and I, don't you have a hatred for Radiohead?
Yes, I have a deep. Like now, there is some stuff I love. Like I love the Bends, but I hate when they went crazy and just started making digital music. I couldn't do that. Like the Kid A and all that stuff. I
love Kid A.
I know everybody does.
Pyramid Song, Knives Out. You gotta love Knives Out.
Knives Out's okay. I can do Knives Out. That was kind of a return. I guess my only concern is anybody still listening to us at this point?
Yeah, we're about 12 minutes in.
Yeah.
I did want to say, Kerry, that I looked up the set list for Third Eye Blind, and they are opening with Motorcycle Drive-By.
See, and he glossed over when I said, man, you're going to get to see him play Motorcycle Drive-By at Red Rocks, and he was like, nothing.
Now,
like, no response at all.
I know you're traveling with important people, George. My understanding, if you get a chance to go backstage, do not do it.
Really?
Stephen Jenkins is not a friendly human being from everything I've ever gathered.
Well, we're sitting in the we're sitting in general admission.
Really?
Yes.
I did know that. That's right.
Well, we're sitting in GA. We bought the cheap tickets.
Okay.
So I think they were only like $60. Yeah. I was like, we got to go.
I've never been to Red Rocks. I am very jealous.
Yeah, I had tickets to go, and the concert.
Jimmy Buffett.
Were you there for the big hailstorm, right? Is that the last time you were up there?
Oh, my God.
Were you there for that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
He was in Denver probably when that happened.
Yes, but
wasn't there a big hailstorm and people were like caught out at Red Rocks?
Yeah.
Yes. I think it was it Turnpike?
Maybe.
It might have been Turnpike,
I thought I knew somebody with that.
No, it wasn't Turnpike. It wasn't Turnpike. It was someone else. But it was someone big.
Yeah.
But no, that is always a concern.
And it was like
going up
softball size hail.
But the only time I've been there was for a Jimmy Buffett concert, and it was phenomenal.
And this is going to be the first time that you're microdosing, right?
Yes.
That's going to be cool. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is my birthday, though, on Wednesday next week, so I'm expecting some birthday texts from all of you guys. It is my sister's birthday today, too, so happy birthday, Maddie.
Happy birthday.
She turns 21, right?
21.
Wow.
Big 2-1.
Yeah.
If you don't puke, you aren't doing it
I
right.
think so, yeah. She go get weird.
My dad is not going to be happy with that comment, but
I puked on mine.
I mean, make good choices, but you're probably going to drink too much. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. To pay you back for all this nonsense that we've talked for now 14 minutes, we're going to go straight into recruiting because Josh is here. He's in town. We had 2 camps yesterday. Got 2 more coming tomorrow. Then you got ChampU BBQ coming up this weekend. But I tell you, let's start with yesterday. We did have every camp session, I believe, except for yesterday, an offer came out of it.
There were 2 offers in the morning session.
Right.
Yeah,
but I'm saying the afternoon, I don't remember hearing an offer come out.
We expected at least 1 or 2 to come out of the afternoon. They didn't. So that's a little surprising. And I kind of wonder if maybe maybe there's just a delay on it, like it's going to happen.
Definitely see that still happening with Myson Johnson-Smith.
Yep.
There's a lot of administrative stuff too going on, which we'll get to. George wrote about yesterday with Curtis Lofton. There's a regents meeting coming on Friday, but we'll get to that. So I think maybe that had something to do. I know they had a ton of Zoom meetings that day. So maybe that's what held up the offer a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, but you had, like I said, what's interesting about it is the morning session was, I don't think we can even argue, the weakest session we've had so far, the O-line, D-line, but they had two really good offensive linemen. And they had
D-line definitely,
the D-line. Now, I did find out the guy that we kind of liked is a 2027 from Georgia, the guy that kind of had the stocking cap, kind of solidly built kid. So he's young. So we might hear that name again. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
he's got a chance if he's 2027.
Exactly. But the two offensive linemen, you had Maxwell Hiller from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, and then you had Jake Hildebrand, offensive lineman from Arizona, and very different kinds of players. I think Hiller is probably going to end up as a guard, and I think could be a really good one. But what I liked about him is I saw enough ability moving around. You're like, he could play tackle if you needed him to. And talking to him, he was actually in some Awoke this morning, and he raved about the visit. He loved it. He really enjoyed his time. I think he'll be back. I don't know when. Obviously Pennsylvania to Norman's not an easy trip. So again, I like the groundwork they laid with him.
And it was cool too. They brought Phil Picciotti out to, and he looks good, man. Phil Picciotti does. They brought him out to say hello because he's from Pennsylvania. And he walked over to you could tell somebody called him like, hey, get over here. We got a Pennsylvania kid.
Yep.
Walked over, talked to him a little bit, and then just walked right out.
Yep. He came over, somebody ran him over, told Bill that he was there. And then Bill called Max and was like, hey, Max, we got this guy from PA as well. Now, I don't know anything about the areas, if they're at all similar, where they're actually from. But you're right. Phil looked great. Kind of, guys, I mean, I think fair to say kind of on that Kobe McKenzie plan where they're changing his body up a little bit, doing some different stuff.
He looks, if you squint, you might confuse him for Danny Stutzman, and maybe that's because he's got the blonde hair going.
He does have the blonde hair, yeah. But no, to the other guy that I don't want to leave out, Jake Hildebrand, like I said, he's very much an offensive tackle, kind of, probably 6'6", 255 right now. I mean, he's still very tall and lean, but moved around really well. He wasn't quite as dominant as Max was yesterday, but I think some of that is development. Like Max, like I said, is already 270, 280, and he just kind of physically overwhelmed everybody. As to where Jake is still filling out his frame, I think at times some guys were able to kind of get underneath him a little bit. But still, I really like the potential of both. I would expect both to probably be top 150, top 200 type prospects, and they may be well more than that, but I think that's kind of the basement of what you're looking at as far as those two guys.
Well, and I would say this too, a tough day to evaluate just because there weren't a ton of really good defensive linemen on the other side.
It was bad. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. Like I said, the kid, and I'd love to say, I think it's Sagun Alexander or something is the young kid from Georgia. It was something along those lines. And he was, again, for a guy that's going to be a sophomore, you're like, okay, there's something
you can
there.
tell he has not been coached really hard at this point in his career.
Frankly, you saw more of him than I did in the drills. So, but no, I liked him. But you're right. It was a pretty paltry day. Now, they made up for it in the afternoon where they had quite a few guys worth watching.
I would imagine, too, with Maxwell Hiller is at Penn State. I mean, for a lot of these kids out of Pennsylvania, it seems like it's hard to go in there.
It is. Now, you just watched, Missouri went in and took an elite quarterback out of Pennsylvania with the Zollers kids that is out at the Elite 11 in Los Angeles with Kevin Sperry right now. So it can be done, but I mean, it feels like one of those things where if Oklahoma was going to do it, they need to go out and have a good year this year in the SEC, kind of, like we talk about all the time, proof of concept. And then, hey, yeah, you can go anywhere you want to if you start, firing out 9-3, 10-2 type years because, hey, you clearly have this thing on the right track.
Okay, afternoon session. Got to see Malaska. You got to see more. I know Eddie came back just raving about Malik Hawkins. Yeah.
Yep.
I told Josh earlier, and I guess it's no way to quantify it because you never know what you're going to be going up against. But I feel like Malik Hawkins, and just not really hadn't seen him before. I think he's as impressive as a guy that has performed in like back-to-back camp sessions Oklahoma's had in a couple years.
He is as well thought out as a corner. We were talking about in that same conversation, Eddie. He is so natural and looks so calm and under control, where a lot of young DBs, and you hear, Jay Valai and Brandon Hall out there all the time, don't panic. Like Xavier Brewer talks about it a lot. Like, all those guys are trying to get these guys, when the ball's in the air, they know something's imminent. They don't just, grab the receiver or do something crazy. Malik Hawkins never looks like he's in danger. He never looks like he knows he's in trouble. He's just thinking about, okay, the ball's coming in. If I don't get there in time, okay, I'm going to try to rip it from this guy's arms. Like, there just always seems to be a plan to everything he's doing. And, I'll fully own it. I didn't love his junior tape, and I feel more comfortable saying that now that I've seen this, and I can say, but I really like what I've seen out of him for 2 days of camp at OU, and have a very different opinion of him than I did a week ago.
By the way, also a running back I think we should bring up that came into camp that looked pretty good.
Two running backs and two very different guys. Myson Johnson Cook is a kid from Katy High. For those that don't know, west side of Houston, just one of the most tradition-rich programs, not just in Texas, but in the country. Katy wins a ton. He's about 6'2", 6'3", and probably 200 pounds. Really physical guy, downhill runner, absolutely a one-cut kind of guy. And then the other was Jordan Smith, who's about 5'8", 165. You couldn't find more polar opposites. But Jordan Smith may have had the best feet of any running back I've seen in a couple years of camp. He was so twitchy and so explosive that it messed up when I was watching Myson Johnson Cook go through drills. It made him look sloppy, and you're like, no, he's just huge. It's just a different kind of thing.
He kind of reminds me of some of those guys that Oregon had a big run on that was just like, where'd this kid come from? And then he flies by you.
Yeah, like Michael James, that kind of guy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot, and Jordan Smith's from Groesbeck, which is...
Yeah, where the hell is that? It's
right around Waco.
Okay.
It's what I was told, about 30 to 45 minutes outside of Waco. So kind of Central Texas area. But yeah, again, very different players, brought a lot of different stuff. But what I liked, especially, with Jordan Smith, you kind of had that anticipation. He's kind of an all-purpose guy. He needs to be able to catch it out of the backfield. He looked great. He checked that box. With Myson Johnson Cook, you're kind of like, well, is this Adrian? Can he catch consistently? Can he be that kind of guy? He looked really good. Like, he caught the ball really well. And I think that's something with running backs anymore. They just know that has to be part of your game, or you're just not going to get to the upper levels of football. So,
well, you better be Adrian Peterson.
Exactly. Yeah, you better be an absolute mutant, and he kind of is. Somebody had told me. I mean, you guys saw him, how big that kid was at the A&M camp. He was clocked at like 4.4. So I mean, like, he can really go once he gets downhill.
That's incredible.
What about, there was a young tight end, I think like Glass Hill, Tennessee. I thought he was probably the one guy. And you said there was a 2025 guy.
He was the 2025 guy.
Okay.
Was the kid from Green Hill.
Okay.
Named Aaron Mattingly.
Okay.
Which was kind of interesting, and obviously Trinae Washington was there as well.
Right.
Jimmy
Wilkerson's son was there.
Yeah.
Talked to Jimmy for a little bit.
To a lesser degree than like we talked about with Malik, I've been very pleased with what I've seen from Trinae Washington. I think he looks like...
I'm a little bit more of a buyer than I was going in.
I would agree completely.
And I don't know if it's like it goes with the idea that, okay, maybe this could work at tight end. Just seeing him, maybe, and it's without pads on.
Yeah.
I do think that the frame is a little bit better than I thought, in that maybe he can come in and hold 30 more pounds.
Yep, agreed. Again, I don't want to oversell and say like, oh yeah, he could be the inline. That's never who he's going to be. I mean, that's just not. He's going to be. I mean,
him and Devon Mitchell, it's a different species.
Absolutely right. Now with Aaron Mattingly, like I said, I thought it was interesting they brought him in. They're clearly still looking around at options for that another 2025 tight end if they want to go that way. He didn't do anything that wowed me that says, oh yeah, OU's going to have to find a roster spot for this guy. I didn't see that. Thought he was a good, solid player. Probably is a P4 guy, but maybe like the Dukes of the world, that kind of stuff. Maybe just not that top upper echelon like Oklahoma and some of these other programs. The young guy was Javian Martin from Pflugerville, who kind of took me back.
Pflugerville, yeah, that was okay.
Because the last time, I mean, it's a good bit of trivia. The last guy that Oklahoma landed at Pflugerville High was Tyrus Thompson years ago. Yeah.
Oh, I was
tackle.
thinking just Pflugerville in general because I was going to say Samaje.
Samaje's the first
What was
name that popped
What was
in
the
my mind.
defensive back's name that ended up?
PJ and
Bonasaur.
That's right.
The legend.
Right. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yep. So, yeah, those are Hendrickson High guys. Obviously, last week we had Gerald Mays from Pflugerville Weiss that was there as well. So, I mean, that's anybody that knows anything about Austin, North Austin's just exploding with people. So, having good roots in there and, building relationships, that's never a bad idea. So, he was probably, what would you guys say, 6'2.5", 6'3", something like that. He had his hair kind of stacked up, so it was really hard to tell exactly how tall he was.
Really thick, though.
But, yeah, very well put together guy. He was clearly, if you were going to say there's a guy that's going to be your edge blocking tight end, he was the guy in that group. There's no question.
I'll say, after seeing Ryder mix, and he's, for me, Ryder mix was a guy that I had to kind of really pay attention to the tape to see, the potential that's there. And I think you can see him as a bigger guy. Like, I don't have any worries about him bulking up as big as he needs to bulk up when he gets on the college campus. The thing about, the Carl Albert tight end again.
Trene
Washington. Like, you've already got a Cade McIntyre in the program. Yep. You got a Caden Helms, guys that came in really skinny. I don't know if that was Nebraska that did that to him, but, you might want to kind of get some big. And I know Devon Mitchell's, just already a bigger guy, but he is a little bit like a baby deer out there. Right? He's not ready yet. But,
oh no!
But I don't. I'm a little gun shy on the skinny. Don't worry, you'll put weight on him because I see a couple of guys where. Well, one, Caden Helms put on weight and it's got him hurt. I mean, he's been hurt the entire time, and Cade McIntyre just hasn't gotten big enough.
Cade's not that small.
No, he's not. He's not so.
I mean,
but he's kind of like a
only been here
tweener
for a year.
Yeah,
but he came in. He looks athletic, but he looks like a oversized wide receiver.
Don't forget, you also get Bauer Sharp for 2 years.
Yeah,
so he'll be back.
And Bauer Sharp looks great.
I would assume he'll be back.
He's out there working with them on what was that
10
Saturday?
more pounds than everybody else too.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing. I mean, they need Devon Mitchell to I'm not saying this year, but from this point in time to this same point in time next year, Devon Mitchell needs to take a real step. They need him to be a guy to buy them a little time, unless again they can find somebody like Bauer Sharp in the portal, which tight end's not one of those positions where you can't find help.
Right.
There's usually players there.
But look at Bauer Sharp's story is not unique either. It's very unique.
There's not going to be a whole lot of Bauer Sharp out there.
With that athleticism, you're absolutely right.
It's like it could be like a tight end version of a Julian Edelman almost.
Yeah. But yeah, with Trene, like I said, people have to be patient. With Caden Helms, all you ever hear from the few times people have gotten to watch him is, oh man, he's really good if they can ever just keep him healthy. So it's so hard to gauge it. Like, what do you make of that? Is it, okay, eventually, surely his luck has to turn right side up, or is he's just injury prone and you're never going to get anything out of him?
I feel like I'm going to say it for like the 50th time since spring ball. It's just like, this is a huge year for him just in terms of staying healthy. Because I do think like physically, he looks just as good as anybody out there. Yeah. You just got to stay on the field. You got to practice.
I will tell you this: when we shot that the family business with Jake and Tyler Venables, them talking about their injuries and blaming it on Brent, because they both had massive hamstring problems. I think Tyler said it was like 20 or something like that injuries. He tore his abdomen from his groin. I mean, like sometimes guys just genetically can't do it. Like their bodies can't hold up. You work that hard, you lift all that weight, you get so big, and just for whatever genetically it doesn't work.
Well, because there's lots of bodies that aren't meant to carry 40 pounds of muscle. Like it's just not what they're. Caden Helms is a naturally lean guy.
Like somebody like Gabe Eichert. I mean, you look at him now. He became a center and he carried all that weight around and he stayed relatively healthy most of his career.
Well, and we talk. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's amazing when you watch ex-offensive linemen, and Gabe came up in that conversation, but Joe Thomas is the same way.
Oh, yeah, he got skinny real fast.
There are two types: the guys that just never stop eating and they become 400 pounds, or the guys that look like fitness pros, like Gabe and Joe, that have lost all this weight and look great.
Yeah, I'm trying not to think of the guys that stayed heavy.
Yeah, that's
not my place.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Josh, tell us a little bit about this past weekend, though.
Hold on, before we do
Okay.
that, Mr. Show Driver, really quick. Now, was that everybody we wanted to hit on this camp yesterday?
Oh, the quarterback.
The quarterback
Tate
from
Reynolds.
Arizona,
yeah.
yeah. Eddie came back and looked at his baseball stats. He was so impressed.
Had I not seen Jaden O'Neal, I'd say go all in on Tate Reynolds. I thought he threw the ball extremely well yesterday. He looks the part, which I don't think that that plays a whole lot into if he's a good quarterback or not. But just physically, it's like I was trying to get your attention from across the field as he walked in. I was like, who the hell is this guy?
Yep.
Where's this guy coming from?
Guys, at what age would you say Baker Mayfield started to look like he does now as a 16, 17-year-old going to be junior?
He looked like a guy that just got off his bike and came into the Elite 11 that one year.
Yes. He I mean, like his lower body, like his legs, I mean, he is well put together.
He looks like a baseball player.
Yes.
Like he looks like a third baseman outfielder.
Well, and he throws it like one, too. I don't know, Carrie, were you...
I watched the video on it.
Yeah, like he wants to do that thing where they dip it down and then cut. Like he throws it like a baseball player. Absolutely does. But he dropped some beautiful deep balls. Now I thought I would say maybe the difference with a guy like O'Neal, who all he does is play quarterback, and Tate Reynolds, obviously, I'm sure he's doing showcases and all kinds of stuff right now. And OU probably just got slid into the middle of a bunch of baseball stuff. You could tell, like, the touch on some of the underneath stuff I thought was a little more natural to Jaden. And, again, that's something Tate can develop over time. And, when he's actually full go in a football season, I'm sure it looks different. So I don't want to knock him for that at all. Guys, of the 3 2026 offers we saw, I think Jaden O'Neal maybe just by a nose over Tate Reynolds. And then I thought there was a drop-off to Darion Coleman. Now, like we discussed, Darion Coleman's a little different player. He brings some things to the table those two probably can't. So there's some give and take. But again, if Tate Reynolds was to be Oklahoma's 2026 quarterback, I don't think anybody should have a problem in the world with that. He's a very talented guy.
Yeah, if Coleman was going to win that evaluation, he'd have to do it on the field in a game. Mm-hmm. You'd have to see something like that.
Agreed.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just me, but sometimes when a quarterback looks that good, like Tate did, like, it almost is a negative to me. I was like, well, if he looks that good, he probably can't get through his progressions very fast or something. Like there's got to be something wrong. It's too perfect.
He is the 80s, like, sports movie villain. Like, because he's good-looking guy, really
Blonde
well
hair.
put together, really good at sports. Like, he is every bad guy in an 80s movie. Like, he should have been in Rad or something like that.
He does look like Johnny from Karate Kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's some
Zabka.
Similarities there.
Did you watch the YouTube?
YouTube.
The YouTube
Cobra Kai?
Cobra Kai?
Oh,
Yeah.
come on, Gary. Yeah, I've watched every episode. Cobra Kai.
I guess
It's on
it went
Netflix,
to Netflix
now.
eventually.
You got 15-year-olds fighting in high school hallways doing karate. Yeah, I'm watching.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
awesome.
I haven't seen it yet because I don't have Netflix.
It's
so.
pretty. It's kind of cringy, but it's.
Did it peter out
entertaining.
toward the end?
What's that?
Did it peter out toward the end?
Well, it's not over yet. I think they still have
is there
one more
more seasons
season.
still?
Yeah, they're still making it because people are watching it.
Yeah, it's
Jason Kersey loves
Jason
Cobra.
Kersey's
He's the
a
biggest
strong-
Cobra Kai fan.
Jason Kersey went to Spencer Rattler's mega signing that he had in that Chicago thing. And while he was there, he was working for The Athletic, I think, at the time. And while he was there, he had Ralph Macchio sign, is it a kimono? Or
Yes,
what are
the tree, whatever.
Yeah.
He had a shirt with the tree or whatever, I think.
No, it was the thing you wear where you get the black belt and all
Oh,
that stuff.
yes, that's what it
The
was.
robe,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what
I
those
remember
are
him
called.
sending
he
me
was
a
doing
picture of that.
karate at the time, wasn't he? Kersey?
Yeah, I think he was.
I think he was
in
like trying to
karate, yeah.
obtain like a black belt or whatever.
I remember him sending me that, and he was like, "How awesome is this?" And I'm like, "Jason's a little crazy." I was like, I like the show. I don't know if I like it.
Have you
that
seen
much.
what he does now in the spare time?
Plays guitar.
Yeah, he's
rocking out.
learning basically every Metallica song that there is.
Yeah.
Jason is like, he looks like when he was working, he was like the cleanest cut, like nothing you would expect, and now you're like, he's learning Metallica
He's got a
songs.
beautiful beard.
Yeah.
Too.
That's what happens when you become a lawyer.
All right, that was camp yesterday. This we're going to move on and give you a fresh perspective from some other things because it is your Enjoy Vision fresh perspective look around. And there's a man that's sitting here watching television. Whenever we have the YouTube Live, which we're going to get back to those soon, he's the one man in the room that can really read what the questions are from YouTube Live. But Mr. Eddie Radosevich, a proud client of Enjoy Vision.
Absolutely. And I've seen the Cubs blow a bunch of games, and I'm about to do the same. But thanks to Enjoy Vision, which is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. It's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What Enjoy is doing for the Unofficial 40 listeners, they're giving $400 off of LASIK. If you're interested, which you should be, go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter NJOY with me.com and use promo code U40, $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
All right. So one more camp tomorrow, Josh. Let's talk about, is it more like what we saw yesterday? Kind of like, let's face it, the first 3 camps were fantastic. I mean, just stars everywhere. Yesterday was good. Some offers went out, and the quarterback certainly stole the show a little bit, and the running backs. But by the way, did we talk about how Malaska looked?
We didn't, actually. And I just to briefly summarize, because I know we're already kind of going long, I thought he looked really good. Talking to some of the people that work with him and that kind of stuff, I bet he'd put on 15, 20 pounds
easily.
Last. Yeah,
easily.
We
talked about his shoulders and just like upper body.
And he was already
starting
long.
to develop.
I was running through pictures from last year, and he was out there. He was in comparison very skinny a year ago.
He's not as tall as his brother is, who's Jocelyn is probably 6'1". Even I think it's Evanson. But somehow I've got into my head that it's Evenson, and so I'm a little thrown back. So you may hear me say it both ways, everybody listening. But Evanson is he's much more physically developed than Jocelyn was at the same time, where he was kind of a string bean, and Evanson's kind of more muscular, but he's probably more like 5'10 and a half, 5'11", kind of in that ballpark.
He's long. His arms
are
long.
He plays a lot longer than he is, because he's just like Jocelyn. He's very long, and his arms and his legs and stuff. So I remember last year, hearing everybody just rave about his feet. And like that's what you can see. Like, he changes direction so easily. He can flip, he can turn, he can run. I mean, there's a reason OU offered him. He still doesn't have another offer at this point in time, which is crazy. But I know he's going to go camp at Kansas State this weekend, and you've got to think at some point the ball will start rolling.
Yeah, as well as they evaluate.
Yeah.
Although I kind of hear, like, for a lot of those schools, it's like Kansas is fighting a little bit of the good fight, but yeah, I think it worries Kansas State every time. I mean, an Oklahoma kid with an Oklahoma offer.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they'll offer him. I mean,
yeah,
they know talent. So anyway, tomorrow's camp, and sorry for that but I thought he deserved it.
Sure.
Tomorrow's camp, what's the feeling on who's coming in? Anybody that you're intrigued at getting to have a firsthand look at?
Well, I haven't gotten the final list, and that's kind of like in the mornings for people out there that listen that aren't members. I'll put up a post before we get started with camp. I'm kind of like, here are the guys I'm watching, and that's usually when I have the list of who we're really expecting, and then you kind of get an idea of, because usually, like last week, or the other day, I was like, hey, we need to watch Jake Hildebrand. We're going to watch Maxwell Hiller. There was a couple other offensive linemen that I knew were going to get evaluated, and I don't have that in front of me, but a couple of the names that I think are interesting. Nehemiah Cologne is a 2026 defensive lineman from Stillwater. I actually saw him earlier this spring. I would love it if he would have been there yesterday and we could have watched him go against guys like Hiller. It would have been a better test for them. It would have given me a better look at him and kind of see where he's at. But he's kind of the type of guy that we've seen OU like. He kind of reminds me of the Cade Petchak kid who, for those that don't know, I actually put in a prediction in for him for Oklahoma, the defensive lineman from North Dakota, yesterday. So they kind of are similar body types, big, sturdy guys. Could grow into a 3 technique, could just be a strong side end. We'll see how that kind of works out. Joseph Graves, for those who know Tulsa high school football, they remember his dad, Pearly Graves, who was part of that great East Central run under Travis Hill, 15, 20 years ago. And Joseph is his son. He's a 2027 defensive lineman. He plays at Booker T, which I'm sure Pearly 20 years ago would have thought was the most unthinkable thing ever. Pearly ended up at Texas Tech, For those that don't remember, he was a really good athletic defensive lineman. Everybody's raved about Joseph since he was like a 7th grader. So this will be my first chance to really get a look at him. I'm kind of looking forward to that. And a couple of guys that, frankly, Eddie's more familiar with than I am, Malachi and Caleb Dillard, a couple of brothers that were at Lincoln Christian, helped them win a state title last year.
They were awesome.
And now they're over at Jinx, part of this. The Jinx are like, what year was that with the Eagles? Like 2009? Something like when they got Vince Young. They called themselves something like the All-Star. It was the Monstars or something like that, where they had just acquired all this talent. Like Jinx has probably brought in this offseason 6 Division I players onto their roster. Like, I mean, it's insane what they've done.
Yeah,
somebody's trying to step up on Bixby.
Yeah,
the message has been sent from Southside School to Southside School.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, the footage of I believe it was the younger brother, right? That was the real star that state playoff run.
The kid that was a freshman. Yes.
Caleb Dillard.
I'll never forget that tape. I mean, that kid is so good.
For what it is, too, it's like, oh, he's just a freshman.
Yeah.
And even at the 3A level, he was noticeably different than everybody else out there.
Their starting safeties could be that kid and Samaj Stanford, who also already has no U offer, and they're both sophomores. Like, they could be their starting safeties for 3 years. Like, just crazy what Jinx has got.
Defensive coordinator of there must be happy.
Yeah, but you would never know it to hear it.
Yeah,
in football
sure.
Like, he's wearing those kids out. I'm sure of it.
Adam Gaylor's the best.
He's having a rough season as well, just like Eddie with the Cubs.
They won. They held on.
Oh, okay.
First career save for my guy that I don't even know the name of.
A save,
Colton Brewer. When you blow games, like they were up 6-1 in the 8th and won 6-5. So, every once in a while you got to give up a grand slam in the 8th inning.
You take them where you can get them, Eddie.
Absolutely. Right now you can.
All right, by the way, Josh is in town. He's getting ready to leave tomorrow, so we'll be doing a recruiting report on YouTube before the second session or before the last session of camp. So we'll certainly recap you if anything major happens at that
Sure.
later on. So anyway, ChampU BBQ coming up this weekend. Just a ton of names coming in. And first off, let's start this because you put it on the board and woke. But the Ty Haywood situation.
Yeah, so for those that missed it, because I want to say in our last recruiting report, everything was still copacetic with Ty Haywood taking his official visit last weekend. That didn't happen. There was a family emergency, and I know everybody, OU fans just have a thing where they've been burned too many times. Exactly. And this was a real deal. Like, this was something they were concerned about. This was something that had to be taken care of. It's a completely understandable thing that he didn't take the visit. Well, the initial word was, okay, he'll just take it next weekend and it's all going to be fine. Well, he had already had a visit scheduled to Florida State for this weekend. So it kind of puts him in a situation where he's going to have to make a choice. And right now, it kind of sounds like that choice is going to be Florida State. Now, I don't think he's told Oklahoma that, and I don't think he's had – and Ty is the kind of guy that – I feel like when he does, like whenever he decides what he's going to do, I feel like he's going to have that conversation with Bill Bedenbaugh. If it's not Oklahoma, guys, the window closes Sunday. Like there are no more visits. There's no until late July he couldn't return to campus. So do I think he's going to wait until late July to make an announcement? I really don't. Now, how OU chooses to handle that's kind of up in the air. Do they continue to recruit him and say, hey, yeah, okay, commit wherever you're going to commit, do what you're going to do, and then just, come take a visit, come see us in late July, and we'll see what's what. I don't know how that's going to play out. I think that's going to be an interesting storyline to watch. If Oklahoma can land one of Michael Fasusi, Andrew Babalola, or Lamont Rogers, I'm going to guess they're just going to wish Ty Haywood luck and say, hey, it didn't work out. That kind of – I mean, now, again, if he wants to take the visit, 100% they will let him. But I'm just saying, I think if – they get one of those three, they're going to feel okay saying, hey, we can move forward with, Ryan Foje and X as our 2 offensive tackles in this class and kind of be okay. We don't know. Like that's going to be the real outlier. Obviously, Andrew Babalola comes into town this weekend for ChampU BBQ. Lamont Rogers is on campus right now. Michael Fasusi visited last weekend. I mean, we can go over all whatever areas you want to go into, but OU fans are jumping off buildings on the Crimson Corner right now, at least a few of them. I still, like we said it last week, I think Oklahoma's going to land one of these 4 guys. At the time, I said I didn't know who it was going to be, so we'll see. But I still think Oklahoma is in a good spot to land one of these 4.
All right, so there's your Ty Haywood update. Still 25, right? 25 guys coming in this weekend. 25
is what I have heard. We have 22 confirmed at the moment.
Okay.
So
I mean, that's just an insane number for one weekend. It almost makes it I don't know, in a way, almost too hard on the staff.
Now, I will say, of that 22, 3, 5, I think it's 12 are commitments right now. So, like, there's not quite the same level of burden. But, I mean, of course, you want to make those guys feel important on their visit. But
that's
they're going to be helping
That does make a difference.
Absolutely.
And maybe it spins it the other way where you almost, not peer pressure some guys into commitments or anything like that, but for a program
cool
that
to play here together.
Promotes all the family stuff, I would imagine having all those guys together, it does make sense in that regard.
Absolutely. I mean, and you've got guys in most of these cases, like you're talking about Andrew Babalola. He's been several times. Andrew Marsh has been, a multitude of times. CJ Nixon, we know, has been up there. I mean, guys, let's just be honest. CJ Nixon's almost a commitment as it is, because I don't know that he's taken another visit in the last 6 months other than to Oklahoma. So, I think he could lead some of the tours if he wanted to. Omarion Robinson's been several times. Emmanuel Choice has been several times. So it's not a lot of guys where you're like, well, this is the one chance OU gets. They better do something here. Really, the 3 that you would say don't know OU as well, but they've all been there several times. Andrew Babalola, Isaiah Gibson, who OU fans I know really would love to take away from, after his USC decommitment earlier this week. And then Smith Arogbo, the big defensive end that we talked to a couple of weeks ago in Houston.
Josh, last weekend they were able to get Marcus Harris to commit after his visit. Who's maybe a guy on your radar this weekend, if any? I'll
do you one better, George, because I know we were talking about some things like you got to go for the second, when we were talking in the room a little earlier. CJ Nixon's the obvious one. That's almost free money to me. Like, I think everyone knows the score there. It's rare I say this. I'd almost be surprised if he left Norman and wasn't committed. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with him. As far as a weekend commitment, a guy I might keep an eye on is Emmanuel Choice, the wide receiver from Lancaster. They've worked really hard with him. I know Malcolm Kelly at TCU. I know the staff at A&M's made a big run at him lately. But I just think his relationship with Emmett Jones goes way back. OU offered him very early on, made him a priority when really not many schools were that serious about him at that early point. So I think that could be one that makes sense. But what's going to be interesting in that conversation, guys, is with the commitment of Marcus Harris, OU's got 3 receivers committed. I can't see a way the numbers work where they take more than 4. So do you take Emmanuel Choice and pass on Andrew Marsh? Like, that's...
Well, and isn't the Cortez Mills kid? I mean,
absolutely.
He loved his visit, too, who came in this last weekend.
And I know that was someone, when I asked Marcus Harris, again, for those who haven't read Woke, I asked him for some guys coming out of the weekend that he felt pretty good about. And I'll tease it a little bit and say he wasn't the first name out of Marcus's mouth, but he was the second. He talked about Cortez, and you could see it. I mean, they tweeted a bunch of pictures together. They clearly hit it off. So, Emmett Jones is in a great situation. He just has to make some tough choices, but they're all players he'd love to have. So it's kind of a win-win.
All right, you talked about Marcus Harris, but his commitment, it wasn't the only commitment that OU has picked up here recently. Let's talk a little bit about who they got and what that means.
Yeah, with Ryder Mix, the tight end from Frisco Lone Star. Ryder, 2026, for those that don't know, haven't heard us on all the shows, father pitched for Oklahoma in the early 2000s, Austin. And I must say, if his dad is any indicator, like, Ryder Mix likes the gym just fine. Like, Austin Mix still looks like he could play ball. He's
got some country strength in there, too.
Yeah. So, but yeah, with Ryder, really complete tight end. We've talked about Trene already in this podcast, where there's kind of a, he's going to be primary receiver. He's going to be flexed out a lot. Ryder's absolutely a guy you could see becoming an inline tight end. Guys, it's not very often at camp that you can talk about, well, that dude's really physical. Like that I mean, unless you're talking O-line, D-line, because you just don't get that many opportunities. But even with the blocking, the weighted balls and stuff, he was shoving people. He knocked a kid over during drills. Like, I mean, he really brought a lot of physicality. And then you watch him catch the ball, and he works out in space against good defenders. And I thought he went against Caden Henderson a couple times. I think he won one of those, and Henderson got him the other time. But, I mean, he held his own against some really good athletes at linebacker. So, I think that's a really good get, and probably a guy that's a, top 10, top 12 tight end in the country probably next year.
I am curious, back to the ChampU BBQ, like, I'm curious for you to find out kind of how kids say it went in terms of what they did. Like, because I would think that, Soul Mission is going to be a big part of, what they present. Obviously, you don't ignore NIL, and you're dealing with the parents a lot in that situation. But, and this is one thing like that they've continued that Lincoln Riley started. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting. I can't remember when they lined up all the cars. Was NIL even a thing then in Lincoln's day?
I don't think it was when they went really crazy with the Lamborghinis and that kind of stuff. I don't think so. I must say I preferred the cars they rolled out last weekend. Some of the classic,
the
old
vintage,
stuff.
yeah.
Those were great. I love those. But yeah,
But the whole Texas is putting Lamborghinis out there. I think it's been interesting too to kind of see the NIL community go like, no, like that's bad. Like let's not send that message out. Like that's not. We're going to talk about financial responsibility and financial literacy and like throwing a bunch of exotic sports cars out there to impress people. Like nobody wants it to be like that. They want it to be like money is involved. This is a professional enterprise. But it can't hurt to have a car or two around. I mean, maybe instead of a Lamborghini, like a nice Audi A7, just a beautiful car, somewhat fiscally responsible. The wife's not driving that, is she?
No. I
is that what you want?
Those things. I love those. I drive trucks. We all know. But if I was going to drive a car, that would absolutely be my car. I love those things.
Well, two of the guys work here on family business, and they both have them, and one of them breaks down all the time.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I thought the German maid was just going to.
Although Isaac's questionable, it might be a reason that Isaac's breaks down. He might drive it too hard.
That feels like a shot fired.
So just get a Lexus.
But yeah,
exactly.
As far as the weekend,
the GX looks awesome, by the way.
I've heard where they're having breakfast Saturday. If I was going to be in town, we could start some kind of SoonerScoop riot there. Get all the fans up there, make it a big deal.
Let's see if we're SEC ready.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, are people going to show up? And that's the question. But yeah, I mean, like you're going to have all that stuff. We know they'll do the dinner at the hangar, which has become kind of a really, and I think kids really like that. I mean, it's kind of a unique thing that they can offer that maybe not every place can do. You're right, though. The Soul Mission is going to be a big part of it. And I think that's what's interesting is because there is no kid I've ever talked to that doesn't like the Soul Mission. Like they love what that brings. They love the idea of it.
And the parents especially.
But you've got to know when to pivot because that's not the right note for this kid. Like that's not what we want to be our lead for this guy. And I think Oklahoma's gotten better with that. I thought the first year it was like so
beating
and then I think they've gotten better at knowing like, okay, this isn't the thing that's going to close that kid. And it's not that they have to like give up their core values, but if you're trying to sign this kid, and he does, he likes the values of the Soul Mission, but he wants to know what's your defensive scheme going to look like? What am I going to do in this defense? What's the depth chart look like? I mean, those are all completely valid questions that doesn't make him a bad guy to ask.
I would imagine, too, that just having so many guys returning to this year's team, like a Danny, like a Billy Bowman, Ethan Downs, that those guys are almost, to this point, extensions of the coaches. You can you could stay with the guys that maybe they're making their first visit to Norman as opposed to some of the guys that feel like they're already a part of the team. Absolutely. And they can just hang out with the guys that they're going to be playing with or, going to be around over the next year.
Oh, and I know that's a big part. They're going to have, some time where they can talk with players like that. That's always a big, the player panels and stuff like that where they can, to my understanding, I've never talked to a player and I've asked them kind of off the record, like, is there stuff where they're like, you can tell the coaches aren't comfortable with you asking that question, or they try to, keep it very cheery. From everything I've ever understood, it's very open format. You ask what you want to ask, and the players They want their players to be as honest as they can be, that kind of stuff. So I think in this day and age where there's so much, there's a lot of stuff thrown at kids that is fake, but there's also a lot more awareness from these guys of what is real and what is fake. I think you have to be very transparent and be as much as you can be, and these kids pick up on that.
100%. On top of, I would imagine, and I can't say that I have any evidence of this, but a kid could be on an official visit. He's texting his buddy who's on an official visit wherever. I mean, all these guys are so connected more nowadays.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Stutzman and Bowman and guys. I think I would bet at an event like this, the question that gets asked as much as any from players to other players is, do they ever miss your NIL payments? Like, is it? Do they give you what they promise you?
Yeah,
and I think that is a thing that Oklahoma probably, if they're smart, from everything I understand, I've never heard a player really talk about that. Like, current recruits, whatever. Like, I've never heard them say this has been a problem or we've heard this is a problem.
Yeah.
Where there are plenty of programs where you've heard that. There was several stories, and this isn't to kick them while they're down, but there was stuff about that about USC kind of this spring where there were some stories out of, I think it was Orange County Register, that the kid that Lincoln kicked out of a practice wrote a story, which I'm sure only won in more favor. But I think he wrote a story about, some of the parents saying, there's things that it wasn't what it was supposed to be. It wasn't there when it was supposed to be. Like, there were some hiccups. Now, I don't think it was necessarily intended. I think maybe it was just, not exactly a streamlined organization at that point, because I know they've changed who their collective
Their collectives have folded
Yes,
and restarted.
100%.
And yeah.
So I think that's been part of it. But yeah, there is. I think Oklahoma has started to emerge as one of the groups that is organized, like has a plan and is executing it as well as they can.
Yeah, and I think that's something too that having former players around, like you can have speakers come. I mean, you can have Sam Bradford. And that's great. I mean, Lane Johnson, I think, has done this in the past. But guys that I don't think Baker will be back because just having a baby and stuff going on there. But I'm trying to check. I actually sent out a text to say, hey, could you tell me any former players before this pod's over? If I get that response, I'll let you know. But it's almost like your best asset right now are the players that you have. With the way things have changed, the promises that get made. I mean, you're basically negotiating now with a school before you ever step foot on campus. Like, is this place living up to its promises? To me, that would seem to be the number one thing I would want to know about if I were a parent, if I were a player, all of that. So, okay, moving forward. Just name-wise at the camp, like where can OU make up the biggest ground?
You mean
these guys coming in?
On the visits?
The visits, yeah.
Yeah, guys, I would say, and it's probably because that's kind of where everybody's focused right now. The two that I would watch are Andrew Babalola, who I know, our guy Steve Wiltfong put in a prediction for Stanford a couple of weeks ago following that official visit. I've talked to several people, and again, Steve's really good. This isn't me questioning him. I know he's got a reason to put that in. But if I'm talking to Oklahoma, I don't think that's where they believe the threat is coming from. Like, there are schools they're worried about. Auburn is one of them, but I don't get the impression that it's Stanford that has a lot of concern. I just think Oklahoma. He hasn't been on campus in a while. I think it's a big chance. It's their, obviously all these guys. It's worth noting this is their last visit. It's like I talked about with Ty Haywood. There's nothing past this weekend, so Oklahoma kind of gets the final word here. The other I would say is Smith Arogbo. And I again, part of that for me is Oklahoma, I think, really needs to make it clear, we want you in this class. You're our guy. Because I have heard some stuff around Houston where there are some that he really likes Oklahoma. He likes Miguel Chavis. He likes all that. But he's not sure where he fits in the hierarchy. And I don't know if that's fair. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm just saying that's the impression that some people have. So I kind of want to see what that gets laid out like, what he thinks of all that. But there's a lot of buzz with him with Texas Tech right now. But you've got to think, if Oklahoma really came and just laid it all out, hey, we want you part of this class. You and Max Granville, you're going to be, two of our pass rushers of the future. That whole thing, I don't mean to dump on Tech, but OU doesn't lose a lot of battles to Texas Tech. So I think that's going to be a very interesting guy to watch because I think you'll know a lot about what he hears based on kind of what he says coming out of the visit.
Where is OU with Max Granville right now? Because I think one of the last times that we really kind of talked about him, there was a lot of buzz about College Station and him not making it up for the spring game and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. This is a guy, I just mentioned Steve Wiltfong. Steve's got a prediction in for A&M. I've got one in for Oklahoma. I still like that pick right now. Talking to Max several times, talking to his family, it's a group I've come to know pretty well being in Houston and OU being as involved as they have for as long as they have. I like where OU is. I think he's one of those guys that I kind of wonder if kind of like what I was talking about earlier with the soul thing, like if they've got to sit down and say, this is how we're going to use you, this is what it's going to look like. Because OU's almost at a disadvantage where we all expect our Mason Thomas to have a great year, but they can't show that on tape. They can't say this is what it's going to look like because they are very similar players. It makes a lot of sense that they would use Max in the same way they plan to use our Mason. So I think they have to sell him on an idea a little bit, but I know he's really enjoyed a couple of visits to Penn State, and a big part of that has been Penn State telling him, hey, look, it's Chop Robinson. Look at the guy they've got coming back this year, whose name I'm just going to blank on. Abdul Carter, I think is his name. They're having that conversation of, look at what these guys are doing. Chop Robinson was just a first-round pick. You can be that next guy. And, again, that appeals to Max because I think he's the fluff doesn't do much for him. And I'm not, again, I don't want people to read that. That's what I'm saying the soul mission is. I know it's something very important to OU. I'm just saying he cares about what's going to get me to the NFL, what's going to make me a better player, who's going to maximize my ability. Now, the good news for Oklahoma is I think he believes in Brent Venables in a huge way. Like they know Brent's reputation as a defensive coordinator, all that stuff. So, again, I like where OU is, but there's no question A&M has made this a very interesting race. And Penn State's kind of one of those deals where if they were in Louisiana, I think Penn State could be a very real contender. I just don't know if he'll go that far from home.
Just don't get yourself blocked by Curtis Lofton now. Calling this
no offense intended. No offense intended.
Soul mission fluff.
Yeah, I said it and I was like, oh God, people are going to take that wrong.
Actually, he's not even a part of the Soul Mission. He won't be. Well, we'll talk to George about that here in just a minute. But anything else you wanted to get out about ChampU BBQ before we kind of get in some team business?
Yeah, I guess just one last guy to kind of highlight is Amarian Robinson, the safety from Arkansas. He came about a month ago. He came out and surprised a lot of people, saying Arkansas was his leader. Then he took a trip to Oregon, and now he's told some people Oregon is his leader. I don't know that that's a bad sign for Oklahoma to have his last official visit when he keeps saying the last school
Classic
I saw.
Mind changer.
Exactly. So I think that could be a really good sign. And again, I think, as we've talked about, you put him and Marcus Wimberly together, whatever happens with Jonah Williams down the road, you can just kind of let that happen. Like if it goes great, hey, good news. But if it doesn't, you've got a good safety room. Marion Robinson, I think, is maybe one of the more underrated players in the country. I love his tape. So again, we'll watch. But again, there's I think at my count currently 10 uncommitted guys. Ty Haywood could make it 11, and there's still a couple others that I'm watching. So this is going to be a very eventful weekend.
All right. And as we mentioned, Curtis Lofton. Yesterday, George left camp early. I followed him to get ready for a YouTube show that we did, an instant reaction. And George, let's just start with you. I mean, you noticed first the meeting agenda that's coming up, the Board of Regents on Friday in Ardmore, and Thursday and Friday. But name the general manager of OU football, and kind of something that he really earned. I think even seeing him go through the Dominic Williams situation that was long and drawn out, and I don't want to say contentious, but it was just not. It was a classic NIL battle, like you would think that they would be, and him kind of helping to wade everybody through that probably showed. Yeah, he's got the chops for this.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say that he kind of earned this job because 4 months ago, when there was talks and several reports about them hiring Curtis as a general manager, that wasn't true at that time. Like, we had talked to people. There were several reports out there about OU looking at other candidates, for a potential general manager type job, including Sean McGee, who's now the GM for Michigan. I mean, there was reports out there that Joe Castiglione, was talking to him about a potential position in the program. So I think Curtis, over the last few months, because this just became official like literally yesterday, but in the last couple of weeks,
I can tell you they just had Zoom meetings yesterday where they were discussing the structure and the hierarchy and who's doing what. Yesterday's kind of when it officially became, this is what we're going to do moving forward.
Right. And I know he changed his Twitter bio, X bio, whatever you call it. I think
general manager.
To general manager a couple of weeks ago, maybe. But this makes it official, and on Friday they'll assumingly approve his new salary, it tells you how important his new job is, because he's going from around $100,000 to $300,000.
101,500, I think it was.
Yeah, and now he's up to 300, or will be starting Friday. So that just tells you how important this gig is and this promotion, and what he'll be doing in terms of roster management, NIL valuations, recruiting in some sense, talent evals. Like, he is essentially doing what a lot of times an NFL GM is doing, in terms of looking at every single player from the top to the bottom that's on OU's roster.
And, of course, Chuck Lilly, the assistant, kind of his assistant. So that they've started to kind of define these areas. And you asked Brent a long time ago in about the general manager thing. He says, what do you think a general manager is? And since then, they've been working on the evaluation side, the recruiting side, the player development side, trying to find out who fits. The recruiting staff has expanded. I know there was something on there yesterday about Emmett Jones' daughter also becoming somewhat of a staff member, a part-time staff member.
Yep.
And then you have Woody Glass. Like, what was he going to be doing? He's basically the chief of staff. He kind of remains that. So everything kind of runs up through the chain to Woody, to Brent. And I would assume Woody's probably pretty good at editing things to get to Brent. So he doesn't get upset or, go on a long rant or whatever.
Yeah, and I just think that you're seeing them kind of give each guy different duties. And I think Curtis is going to be able to take some things off of Brent's plate in terms of, Brent isn't thinking about the transfer portal in August, right? Mm-hmm. But you need someone on staff that says, oh, well, they identify, X player that might enter the portal, in December, or after the season, or during December, who might enter the portal in the spring. I think Dominic Williams is a good example of that he was somebody that they probably identified early in the process of, hey, he could enter the portal at some point. We would be interested. So I think that you're seeing that. I think that they're still probably looking at hiring more people, because when you look at what's going to happen in the next few months or the next year in terms of revenue sharing and compensation of players and them becoming employees, you're going to need a lot of financial people. And that's not to say that Curtis can't do that. I'm sure he understands contracts and all of that, but you need somebody that can, understand the money, where it's going, how much your budget is, and things like that. So I think this is just kind of the first domino, really, of what this thing's going to look like moving forward.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of this, they wanted to get it done before the big July 1st celebration. I think there's going to be more stuff that you hear about just structurally within the university before that July 1st deadline gets here. And then they'll just be able to kind of sit back and celebrate the move to the SEC. And I know we'll be kind of all over the place that day. We're still trying to figure out the plans and what the media opportunities are and things like that. But a lot of stuff at the stadium. There's breakfast with like Barry Switzer and Dari Noka in Tulsa, and I think Toby and Brent. Are they doing? Or
I think a lot of the head coaches for multiple teams will be at Toby Keith's Bar and Grill Monday morning, July 1st. I think they'll be speaking at that.
By the way, you mentioned the airport hangar thing. Was that the Toby deal?
Yes,
I think so. I think
so. Will that continue?
Yep.
Yeah, they have.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. They took people there this past weekend, right?
Oh, they
On
did?
Saturday,
Okay, I didn't
yeah.
see that.
Saturday night. Which is kind of cool because I think it's like it really is like every coach's family's up there. Like,
and that's something that he loved.
It is a
and would
massive,
want to continue.
intensive like family, kids running around, that type of deal. And you get to know them. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that people don't think about. They're like, oh, what is the pitch that they're making to Max Granville or Andrew Babalola? If you can make mom and dad feel good about the situation, that changes the math a lot.
All right, just a couple things to clear off here before we get out of here today. When we last left you, we knew that Nijaree Vickers had gotten arrested for something. We didn't know the details of the arrest, and we now know that. But then you also had Deion Burks, which actually happened June 1st. Give Storm Jones credit from Channel 9 KWTV in Oklahoma City. I believe he uncovered that, right?
He was the first person that I saw put it out.
But I thought Storm put out the one.
I thought we were
third player.
That was Jesse Crittenden, I think, was the first person.
And then
it was Jesse
myself.
Crittenden, yes.
I think Jesse and I. Jesse
you
found
had the police report first, but he had the initial OCS net docket.
And Ryan Chapman had the Nijaree Vickers.
Yeah. Which, again, like, I know that we've talked about this before, but getting a DUI, it sucks. It's a terrible decision, not defending it at all.
It was a .09 for Deion Burks.
For Deion Burks, yeah. It kind of sounds like he got screwed a little bit. I don't think it's the biggest thing, other than like the embarrassment and the amount of money that it cost you to get like the breathalyzer and all that kind of stuff, especially in the state of Oklahoma. It sucks. But at the same time, I think we all had buddies in college and maybe even after college that DUIs happen. It's just not the best look. Justin Timberlake got banged for one on Tuesday night.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's more like, who of you amongst us can say that you haven't driven when you shouldn't be?
Sure. And I think that it also is just a good reminder. It's like, especially if you're in Norman or wherever, $10 for an Uber is really not that big of a deal in the long run. You can get your car in the morning.
I almost tweeted yesterday that Justin Timberlake's going to spend a lot of time with Schmitty this summer after his DUI, but I don't know if that was distasteful.
I think that would have been funny.
Yeah. Maybe I'll still do it.
Great mugshot.
We deal in a little bit of distasteful, George.
I know.
A lot.
I know.
And by the way, I mean, it shouldn't be ignored. Tragedies do happen. It's stupid to do it.
Absolutely.
Get an Uber. You know what? If you got a kid in college and he likes to go out and have a drink or so, buy him a freaking Uber gift card. I mean, you just go to CVS and they're all over those racks.
I don't think I've ever said this publicly. I got one once upon a time.
No, you've said it publicly. We talked about it on the pod.
Yep. That was not.
You
not
didn't tell me. That was the first time I found it.
My buddies thought I had fallen asleep in the car, and I had. I woke up and just shouldn't have driven. And it was my mistake. I screwed up and paid the price. That is not a fun thing. Take the Uber.
Yeah, my best friend.
That's a shitty.
My best friend. I had to call his dad to tell him that he was in jail because he just got a DUI, and so I was up that whole night. And it didn't happen to me, but it might as well have, because I had to deal with his girlfriend was too afraid to call his parents, so she made me
to tell you the level of fear. I clearly have told you all, had blocked it from my memory that I had told you all, because I was like, am I going to say this? I was like, yeah, I'll say it. And then you guys were like, oh yeah, you told us.
Now, did you have to get the breathalyzer thing in your car?
So this is the greatest part of it.
It's great. Go ahead.
No. Like, great. Me being stupid, great. So I got it, and I never bothered to read all the information.
This is the thing you blow in to show your car that you're not drunk.
I didn't read it, and you had a certain amount of time to get it put into your car. Well, I passed that window, and so I just had to drive without a license for 6 months. God. And yes. That was
Scoop employee.
Well, that's one way to be sure that you're very, very careful out on the roadway.
I was terrified.
Almost too careful.
Did you see the video of the guy that had his license revoked and he drove? He went before this judge.
Yeah,
and he was on a Zoom, but he was parking his car as his he was called up to the witness stand, and he parks his car, and the judge is like, "It says here that you have a revoked license, sir."
Yeah.
And I just saw you drive your car. And
now, there is a follow-up to that story.
Oh, is there? I didn't see the follow-up.
There was a clerical error in his license was never supposed to be suspended, so he
really?
didn't even know that.
Oh, okay.
But the courts thought it was suspended, so he ended up kind of getting out of it.
Oh, good.
But yeah, that was an all-time WTF moment.
I feel better about humanity now that you told me that. Okay, so one other big thing on the docket, Nijaree Canady.
I was going to say real quick.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The third, we're not going to say who it is just because he was never arrested, never charged with anything. But I think we should say that this is a player that nobody expects to have any meaningful impact on the season. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to put that out there because I know there's a lot of people that are like, who is it? What's going on? Well, that he wasn't charged. You know, I don't think there's anything the police can do to charge him. So it's just kind of mute at this point.
All right. There you go. So moving on.
George just had an Eddie. He went with mute instead of moot.
Moot.
Whatever.
Mute. It's
No,
mute.
it's perfectly fine. I
It's
don't
mute
think I've
and
ever heard
with-
George do
You two are
that.
spending
It's
too much
moot,
time together.
and we have muted all of that conversation.
Yes. There'll just be a big 1,000 kilohertz tone.
Buy me a couple
Overall.
beers at the Sip this weekend, and I'll probably tell you.
I am gonna. I've decided on the YouTube shows I'm going to have like the color bars and the tone ready just to play at any moment's notice.
Okay.
I don't know that we'd need. I mean, Eddie's pretty good on YouTube. I mean, like he doesn't. You know, there's a S thrown in every once in a while.
Yeah.
He knows it's money. He knows he doesn't want to get demonetized.
No, I want to get canceled, and that's why we're going to talk about the state senate races on this week's.
Okay, so I believe actually Nijaree Canady is her full name. Stanford pitcher. If you've watched softball and you don't live in a cave, you know who this is. But she is in the transfer portal. OU, I think we can say, is strongly involved, and I don't know. Who wants to say anything about this? Or I mean,
I don't think that there's anything to say.
there's not really much to say. Yeah,
I think it's one
OU
of those-
has a shot. I mean,
yeah,
I
I
think
think-
it's a real situation that OU could end up landing.
And I think it's
Nijaree
safe to
Canady.
say that NIL will play a factor in this,
Yeah.
and that OU is a player. But does that mean OU's going to spend an absurd amount of money?
No.
I don't think
No.
so.
And anytime you have a program like Patty's, you don't have to.
Correct.
So
And I also we
and
know,
I don't think the Patty would want to. I don't
Exactly.
know for a
That's
fact,
what I was gonna
but
say.
I doubt Patty wants to have some bonus baby on her roster when it could shake up the entire chemistry of the team.
right.
Yeah, at the same time, though, I think you take the National Pitcher of the Year or National Player of the Year anytime that you can get her.
Yeah, but also at the same time, you've won 4 straight national titles,
Sure.
and it's
Sure.
it's one of those things that
But would this be the time to do it, just in terms of, like, there are so many people that are going to be new to the program next year with the 8 freshmen, the 8 returning players, obviously, and then the 5 transfer portals or whoever the people are that they're going to bring in. But I guess then you could also say, like, at the same time, out the other side of the mouth, you would say this is the time that you would want to instill that culture.
yeah.
I would be very, very surprised if she doesn't end up at OU. I don't know any ins and outs. That's just basically from me, maybe even thinking how the hell could somebody want to turn down playing at Love's, being a part of the OU softball program, all that good stuff.
Do we think if she didn't end up at Oklahoma, it would be, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, maybe a sign of a market inefficiency? Like maybe somebody more willing to get a little overly aggressive for a softball player?
Like a Texas. I think Texas is the only one that it could be.
The thing that with
But
Texas,
I also think
Florida.
Florida
think
for
that
sure.
Texas's collective, they're kind of like OU's. They don't want to spend a ridiculous amount of money for one person.
I think people have the wrong idea about Texas in that regard. Like I think people think they just splash it around, and that's not been my impression.
Oh, I think they look down like, there's A&M, that new money, just throwing it around. They don't know what wealth really is. Like,
it's hard to Venmo with your teacup in your hand. You know, it's
we're doing these. That was a thumb up thing. But no, I thought maybe Nebraska, they kind of seemed like, but they got Jordy Ball. It would be the dumbest purchase ever.
Yeah,
The dumbest way to throw away money. You
if
don't
they
need
were going to
those
spend
two
real
pitchers.
money, there's
I
better ways
don't
to
think
do
that
it.
they have any. From what I understand, I don't think Nebraska has any pitching spots either. They have like 5 pitchers. on
Yeah,
the team. But then again,
I think
it's
you
like
said that the other
for
day.
Canady, I think you make room for some of these people.
You know, there's not 4 better pitchers than her.
Yeah. And for like OSU's situation with Ruby Malin coming in from Washington, she's already signed. So like
great.
they're basically locked into her next year, so they can't make a move for Canady. It's almost by like in kind of a sick way. It's almost like by process of elimination, Oklahoma is the only spot that you could go and say they more than need that.
Well, because Tennessee returns the freshman that was so good this year, right? That was their number one. Wasn't that? Was it Tennessee?
Now we're out of my element. I do not know.
With Rothrock.
Yes,
You're thinking
okay,
of Florida.
you're right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of. You're right.
Well,
And I think Texas has got a lot of girls coming back too at pitcher.
They do.
You know, and the thing that somebody said to me recently, which never really registered to me, but when you're an athlete in college softball is the one sport where little kids look up. Like most of your audience are little girls, like that look up to you. Like, how does that feel when you get a bunch of money to transfer somewhere else? Like, how much pressure does that put on you? Especially like Kelly Maxwell when she went in-state from Oklahoma State to a hated rival, and she knows she did it for a really high price. Like, maybe that was some of what was weighing on her this year and why she didn't look as dominant until the World Series.
At the same time, in a sport like this, like, I don't blame Canady or any of these other girls trying to get the biggest bag they can get because they're not going to make money at the next level. At least not.
This is the payday.
Yeah.
This is their
more
payday.
time to be
But I'm
cutthroat
saying if
than
you want to
football
reset
guys.
the bar, like, if like Nijaree Canady can do, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot more pressure than just saying this is what the rest of our team gets. We'll pay you a little bit more, but because you're that good, but we're not paying you $1 million. I mean, I don't think there's a single softball team in the country that has $1 million payroll for their entire team. It would shock me if that were true, including OU.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I just don't think there's a whole lot to know right now. I think it might be a little bit till she makes a decision. Now,
And the
that
portal
said,
just
she's going to make
closed,
one
so, yeah.
tomorrow, but
I really don't know, but if I had to guess, I'd be early next week.
Early next week.
Well,
earliest.
Stanford, they're probably on a weird quarter system.
I actually
too.
looked it up. Stanford just finished their, I guess it's called spring semester or summer semester. I don't think that they're back in school for another like month.
Okay.
But she's not going back to Stanford. I think that's safe to say.
I think it might be safe to say she's going to end up somewhere in the SEC. I don't know if there's anybody else really in play.
I would agree with that.
I think that's fair.
Unless somehow Nebraska is, but they don't need her.
I don't think Nebraska's in the equation.
Yeah. I think there was that tweet yesterday. I think everybody started trying to connect dots.
It was about some other commitment they got.
I guess the only other school not in the SEC that we've kind of heard is Florida State, maybe.
Yeah.
You could see them getting involved.
I mean, yeah. It's going to be interesting, and we don't know. We don't know.
It's crazy, though. Back-to-back years, the best pitcher each year has entered the portal in softball. Jordy Ball last year, and she knew immediately where she was going.
Yeah.
And that wasn't NIL driven. Canady this year, where I don't think it's just NIL driven. I think she wants to win, but I do think this one's a little bit more NIL focused than what Jordy Ball was doing.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Anything anybody else wanted to hit on before we get out of here?
I don't think so.
No. All right. That's going to do it. We will be back again next week without George. He'll be on vacation. Watching a concert that I'd love to see, but I won't.
I'll FaceTime you in.
Okay. When Motorcycle Drive-By starts, I would like to be FaceTime.
I'll FaceTime you.
Because if it's the first song, that's the only one that you're going to be able to recognize, unless it's...
Well, no, they're playing, Semi-Charmed Life and Jumper, and I think they close with...
Name another one. Come on.
How It's Going to Be.
I don't think that's their show ender.
Do what?
I don't think that's their show ender.
I'm pretty sure it's their encore.
Oh, is that because you've looked at
That's
the
the
set
encore,
list.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
all
an
right.
interesting set end. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Josh and I judging them.
Yep.
That's going to do it. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on SoonerScoop.com.